I discovered the haunted battlegrounds where medieval warriors still fight for their souls. I never should have opened that door. It loomed before me, ancient and twisted. The air around it thrummed with an energy I couldn't see but felt deep within my bones. Curiosity clawed at me, stronger than reason. How I trembled as I reached for the handle. A part of me screamed to back away, to flee. But another part whispered stories of the past, of battles fought and lost, of souls trapped in a vortex of war. Every evening, I walked this path, comfortable and familiar. The sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows that danced against the cold ground. My world was a palette of grays as twilight cloaked everything in secrecy. I could hear the rustle of leaves, the distant hooting of an owl, an occasional shiver of wind against my skin. It was peaceful. Until tonight. I stepped into the darkened hallway, the door creaking like a wounded creature. The chill wrapped around me like a shroud. Whispers filled the air, soft, sinister murmurs brushing against my ears. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting a shadow to stalk me. But I was alone. The walls dripped with age, the wooden floorboards groaned beneath my feet. A deep, unsettling quiet settled over the place, broken only by the occasional skitter of something unseen. It sent electric chills racing across my skin. My pulse quickened. I took another step, and suddenly, an echoing clang jolted me. My heart slammed against my ribs. I felt it then. The weight of unseen eyes studying me, evaluating my very essence. But what did this place know of me? The air thickened, dense and oppressive. I could taste the fear on my tongue. What if I wasn't alone? What if those whispers belonged not to the living, but to the spirits of the dead? My breath caught in my throat as things around me shifted. Shadows flitted across the room, moving, just out of sight. A sharp clang again, metal on metal. And then a glimmer of light. My fingers brushed against something cold and hard. A sword, an ancient weapon resting there as if waiting for someone to reclaim it. My mind raced. I pulled away, fear twisting in my gut. "Who's there?" I breathed, terrified of the answer. Silence fell heavy. Cold sweat trickled down my spine as I waited, every instinct urging me to flee. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the murky darkness, a silhouette against the fading light. The shape loomed, shifting like a shadow come to life. A scream bubbled up from my chest, raw and savage. But I couldn't let it escape. I was frozen, caught in a web of dread, as the figure took a step closer. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a worn and ragged silhouette clad in rusted armor, dented and stained by battles long past. Its face was obscured by a shadow, but the faint glimmer of eyes, glassy and hollow, seemed to burn through the darkness, fixated on me. A chill seeped into my bones as realization rushed over me. I was not merely witnessing a ghost, I was staring at a spirit steeped in rage and despair. Without a word, it raised the sword I had touched moments before, the blade glinting with a life of its own. The air vibrated around us, thick with the clanking of steel, distant cries, the echo of men once proud, now damned. My heart raced, pounding in my ears as memories of their anguish washed over me, images of fierce duels and screams of the fallen whispering like ghosts begging for release. With a sudden howl that seemed to gather the voices of 1,000 warriors, the figure lunged, a spectral blur gliding toward me. My body jolted with instinct, ricocheting backward as I turned to flee. But the grip of the ethereal battlefield tightened around me, the air heavy with anticipation. It felt as though the very foundation of the ground was alive, pulsing with the energy of the forgotten dead. I dashed through the hallway, the shadows elongating and consuming my path as phantoms swirled around me, glimpsed only as silvery wisps trailing in my wake. I stumbled into a vast chamber, and for a moment, I felt hope spark inside me. But as I spun, the hope swiftly extinguished. The room brimmed with spectral warriors, once broken but now ferocious shadows of the conflict they could not escape. The air thickened even further with the unmistakable scent of blood, mingled with the rich earth of a battlefield long past. I covered my mouth to stifle a scream as I clashed into another figure, a knight whose visage mirrored the horror of betrayal, stained in dark crimson that glimmered ominously like fiery embers. "Join us," he rasped, the voices melding together in a dreadful harmony. "Join the fight. We need your strength." Their words punctured the air, vibrating with desperation. I stumbled backward, the shadows closing in around me, pressing against my skin like an icy veil. "I don't want to fight," I gasped, desperate to break free from their grasp. "I'm not one of you." The spirits recoiled for a fleeting moment, and with that, I saw their faces mutilated, tormented, eyes swirling with regret and rage, burning with longing for the battles of their lives. The sounds of clashing metal and cries of agony grew louder, engulfing me. Time fractured, and reality blurred as I felt myself being pulled deeper into the damnation they inhabited. Suddenly the leader of the spectral warriors, a tall figure draped in tattered remnants of once stalwart armor, stepped forward. His voice, low and gravelly, whispered promises and threats at once. "You have opened the door. You are chosen. Stand with us or be consumed." Before I could respond, the ground beneath me trembled violently as a deafening roar echoed through the chamber, distorting the very fabric of time and space. I clutched my head, wrenching against the insistent pull of their battlefield. A blinding light erupted from the center of the chamber, casting shadows further into the corners, illuminating the horrors that awaited me. But at its heart, I glimpsed something far worse, a towering specter, cloaked like a calamity waiting to undo the world, a relic of forgotten battles with eyes like voids, summoning the dread of every soul lost. Then, as abruptly as it began, the light snuffed out, plunging me back into darkness. The shadows lurched forward, and the figure with the hollow eyes reappeared before me, raising its sword once more. I gasped, clutching at my chest as the howl of sorrowful warriors filled my ears. "Choose your side," it bellowed, the voice ripping through the silence. With fear mounting like a tide, I prepared to run, but then the room surged beneath me, the walls warping as the ground opened, swallowing the chamber whole. Insanity crashed in waves, and as I teetered on the brink of the abyss, one thought clawed at my sanity. I was falling not just into darkness, but into the heart of their eternal struggle. A scream ripped from my throat as I plummeted, arms flailing, suspended between life and unending torment. In that terrible moment, all I could hear was the rage of warriors demanding their souls, demanding me. I hit the ground hard, an unforgiving impact that rattled my bones and sent ripples through my consciousness. The air around me was thick and charged, a suffocating mist swirling with the remnants of ancient memories. I lay flat on a cold surface, feeling something wet beneath me, and panic surged as I realized it was blood. As I scrambled to my feet, the world around me came into focus, an expansive battlefield illuminated by a sickly glow that seemed to seep from the earth itself. Rags of fog churned at my feet, swirling around lifeless corpses in armor, their faces twisted in eternal anguish. I recoiled, stumbling back as the echoes of clashing steel and the anguished cries of soldiers roared to life amidst the silence. A low, guttural laugh reverberated through the air, sending a jolt of ice through my spine. I turned sharply, searching for the source among the ruins of what must have been a great war. Shadows flickered between the remnants of long-buried conflict, weaving intricate patterns as their forms materialized, their hollow eyes locked on me with desperate hunger. "Another one," a voice purred, dripping with malice and uncontained mirth. It belonged to a figure that slinked from the shadows, a twisted, emaciated reflection of humanity, adorned with disfigured armor seeping a viscous liquid that pooled at its feet. How delightful! Another innocent willing to suffer for our cause. I stumbled back again, heart racing. "I don't belong here. I didn't ask for this." The words tumbled from my lips in desperation, but I felt the truth weigh heavily upon me. I had awakened something, opened a door that should have remained staunchly shut. The creature, with its elongated limbs and grotesque facial features, tilted its head as if savoring my fear. "Oh, but you did ask. You touched the sword, and the sword marked you. You are entwined with us now, a thread in our endless tapestry of woe." Skepticism warred with fright. The very essence of this place gnawed at my mind, knowing that escaping was not an option. Shadows continued to flicker, darting like the souls of the fallen, surfacing with every sound of distant conflict, a haunting parade of the damned. I could hardly breathe as I felt their resentment pooling around me, a cloying presence begging to consume me. "Join us, and feel the war anew!" It hissed, tendrils of darkness unfurling like smoke from a dying candle, wrapping around my wrists and tightening like a chain. The whispers of my surroundings became a chaotic clamor, promises laced with threats. "Join the fight, and you shall know the sweet release from your mortal coil." I twisted, struggling against their grasp, but the tug of their despair pulled me deeper into the chaos, as if the ground itself had conspired against me. A ghastly army emerged from the mist, spectral figures charging with swords raised high, their faces contoured by agony, the very manifestation of regret and fury that had kept them trapped in this purgatory. They surged toward me, fleshless mouths wide with a wailing recognition of what I had disturbed. "Help us!" A voice rose above the cacophony, shrill and desperate. "Help us finish what we started, free us from our oath of blood." And just like that, the moments of my past, of choices made and paths taken, began spilling into my mind like a torrential storm. I saw myself standing outside that cursed relic, the sword-'s gleam calling to me like a siren. I had sought power, knowledge, but at what cost? The phantom armies cried out as one, "Betrayer! You will not escape!" The figure of the emaciated creature loomed closer, its eyes gleaming with wicked delight. "You belong to us now. The choice is made either to fight or to fall. So sweet, your screams will be, as you choose." In a moment of desperation, I realized the way to break free was not through submission but resistance. I threw my head back and screamed, "No! I want to fight for you!" My defiance echoed like a taunt, reaching the farthest edges of the spectral battlefield. But the warriors surged closer, their forms twisting into terrifying shapes, mouths contorted into wretched grins, eyes blazing with violent fury. The ground started to tremble beneath us, a dark abyss opening up, swirling with the screams of the damned, the very essence of despair and revenge. I braced myself as the ancient shadows lunged, ready to claw me into their purgatory, but just then, a crack of blinding white lightning tore through the sky above. It struck the ground in front of me, illuminating the souls gathered in a fierce contrast, and the very world seemed to shudder. For a heartbeat, I caught a glimpse of something standing amidst the chaos, a solitary figure in white. It raised a hand toward me, the same sword I had touched now gleaming a glimmer of hope or another trick of the darkness. And then, the ground beneath me gave way. I felt the immense pressure of time and space folding around me, pulling me into the swirling void. I gasped in terror as that shining figure flickered, the ethereal form dissolving into the chaos. As I disappeared into the depths, I could hear them again, the cries of anguished warriors echoing, "Fight or fall! Fight or fall!" But this time, I wasn't alone in the dark. Something was reaching for me from the depths, an unseen force, cold and ancient, whispering promises laced with curses, and I realized, my fate was not mine to choose, but theirs to dictate. Desperation clawed at my throat as I felt the looming shadow of an even greater horror rising. Their eternal struggle was far from over, and I was the latest pawn in their game. What was waiting for me on the other side was unfathomable, and the terrible truth loomed: my destiny intertwined with theirs, and the battle for my soul had just begun. The darkness enveloped me, cold and suffocating, as I fell through the void, spiraling into the depths of an ancient nightmare. The chaotic chorus of screams and clashing steel faded, replaced by a disorienting silence that pressed against my ears. Just as abruptly as I had been plunged into darkness, the sensation ceased, and I landed with a muted thud on a damp, uneven surface. That I opened my eyes to find myself in a dimly lit cavern, its walls glistening with moisture that dripped like sorrow from the jagged rock. Flickering torches cast erratic shadows, darting like flickers of memory. The air was thick with decay, the scent of death festering in every corner. There was a strange familiarity to this space, an echo of something buried deep within me. As I pushed myself to a sitting position, fragments of the battlefield danced in my mind, the glimmering sword, the twisted spirits, and the menacing laughter that promised suffering. My heart raced as realization hit me. The cavern was a prison, a tomb for the souls that were bound by a pact long forgotten. No, I whispered, feeling the weight of despair closing in around me. But the cavern did not reply. Instead, its silence cradled the remnants of countless lost battles. The whispers of the fallen reverberated against the walls, each echo mingling with the distant sound of metal scraping against stone. Shaking off the remnants of shock, I climbed to my feet. "Hello?" My voice echoed nervously, swallowed by the gloom. As if in answer, the shadows at the far side of the chamber shifted, reshaping into distinct forms. Ghostly visages emerged, their features twisted and forlorn, eyes wells of haunting regret. "No escape," one of them rasped, its voice a mournful croak that sent shivers down my spine. "Once marked by the sword, you tread the path of our despair." I tore my gaze from their sunken eyes, scanning the cavern for an exit. The far walls receded into darkness, leaving no trace of where I had come. The dread in my gut twisted tighter. I was trapped. This place existed to contain the restless souls who had perished without resolution. As the spirits closed in around me, their wails crescendoed into a haunting dirge that tugged at my very essence. "Join us," they pleaded, their voices a mad cacophony. "Help us complete what was left unfinished." The words hung heavy in the air, an invitation laden with danger. Amid their mournful cries, I glimpsed flashes of their demise, a desperate charge into a battle, betrayal, longing for vengeance, a relentless cycle of pain that had eclipsed their hopes. "No! You're trapped, and I'm not." My refusal faltered as an oppressive pressure bore down on me. The shadows twisted, a multitude of hands stretching out, longing to ensnare me. My breath faltered as I pressed my back against the cold stone, searching for a means to resist their pull. From within the horde, a figure materialized, a wraith cloaked in tattered rags, its face obscured beneath a dark hood. "It is futile," a chilling voice said, reverberating with ancient authority. "You will remember, and your soul will be ours." Suddenly, the cavern walls trembled, quaking as if the very earth lamented the torment of its tortured captives. As I stood paralyzed, a vision unfolded before me. It was the battlefield, but now overtaken by shadows, the ground slick with blood and betrayal. I saw faces I recognized among the fallen, warriors I had once revered caught in a cycle of vengeance for sins I had yet to understand. The wraith's finger extended towards me, and the air became dense with a sense of impending doom. "Face the truth of your lineage, witness the blood that churns within you." The shadows surged forward, a wave of darkness crashing against my defenses as I felt a deep-seated connection to the suffering around me, a whisper of ancestral pain surging to the surface, coiling within my veins. A memory flickered like dying embers, and suddenly, I was overwhelmed by the voices of long-buried ancestors, their desperate pleas echoing in the cavern. "Free us! Break the chain!" "No!" The scream erupted from my throat, as I fought against the crushing realization that this was only the beginning. I strained against the crowds of anguished spirits, but they drew closer, their relentless cries pounding against my skull, and then I heard it, a solitary voice resonating above the others, clear as a bell. "You must choose, child of blood. Decide if you will embrace your legacy, or be consumed by its darkness." A shiver of recognition slithered through my heart, and as I turned to confront the source, time slowed, and it all dropped away: the wraiths, the cavern, the swirling void. Just before I disappeared, I glimpsed the same glowing sword that had marked my fate, standing sentinel at a precipice, glowing against the abyss, daring me to take the leap. I was spiraling again, a vortex of uncertainty, but as I plummeted through the darkness, I understood with stark clarity. The true horror was not what lay in the shadows, but what lay ahead, because choice was the ultimate curse. And to choose was to invoke the wrath of the restless souls, who awaited their champion, their savior or their executioner. And with one last breath, I felt the ground shatter beneath me, and I plunged into the waiting arms of the abyss, where the true fight for my soul would unfold. What awaited at the bottom felt worse than death, a darkness that yearned for my inevitable choice. Falling, endlessly falling, I felt the air grow colder, a biting chill that wrapped around me like a shroud. The darkness thickened, a living entity that constricted my lungs and snatched away my screams. My mind spun with visions of the souls who had converged on me in the cavern, their cries, their regrets, their certainty that I belonged with them, forever shackled to their unresolved pain. Then, with an almost physical jolt, I landed again, this time not softly on stone but on a battlefield strewn with remnants of desolation, shattered shields, rotten banners, and the mummified corpses of warriors left to rot in their eternal fight. I was engulfed in a haze of acrid smoke, the remnants of fires long extinguished yet still heavy with the haunting scent of charred flesh. As I rose to my feet, the silence was unsettling. It wasn't just the absence of life. It was a heavy pause, as if the world itself awaited with bated breath. Wrenching my gaze from the grotesque remains around me, I saw flickers of movement at the edges of my vision, figures cloaked in despair, their skeletal hands grasping swords and shields, their eyes devoid of light yet filled with fierce determination. They were readying for battle again. In the air, I could hear the faint echoes of command, shouts lost to time, battle cries mingled with the rustle of armor, a haunting symphony of struggle. Ghostly figures emerged from the fog, their transparent forms flickering like candles in a tempest. They were fighters, yes, warriors trapped in a time loop, forever replaying the horrors of their last stand against betrayal and death. Fear seeped into my core, teetering on the edge of my sanity as I stumbled backward. No, this can't be real. But the grasp of an icy hand confirmed the nightmare. The sensation of cold leather against my skin was too vivid to deny. Join us, a deep, guttural voice eerily echoed from the shadows. It was a warrior, his face obscured, framed by wild hair and dripping with the fresh scent of blood. You must fight. We require another hand to wield the sword against those who imprisoned us. You are the chosen one. Chosen? I am no one, I stammered, the desperation clawing at my throat. I don't belong here. He stepped forward, and I caught a glimpse of his hollowed cheeks and accusing stare emanating an otherworldly glow. Yet here you are, he said, his voice a deep rumble of resolve mingled with despair. You are entwined within our histories. Your blood calls to us the blood of our kind. In that instant, a wave of memories crashed over me, flooding my senses with their pain. I saw visions of valiant battles, comrades falling as betrayals sliced deeper than swords. Souls that had walked this earth, now locked between realms. The sword that had marked me stirred in my mind like a restless spirit, the promise of power intertwining with terror. Embrace your purpose, the warrior pressed, advancing into the fog, shadows forming a tempest around him. The battlefield began to shift, phantoms of past warriors materializing and charging towards an unseen enemy. I felt a compulsion rising within me, an insatiable urge to join them, to claim my heritage and take up the mantle of vengeance. But before the choice could fully surface, an explosion of light encapsulated the battlefield, tearing the veil of my vision. I was thrown backward, tumbling through a swirling maelstrom of colors. Moments later, the light faded, and I found myself at the edge of another desolate battlefield, a vicious clash unfolding before me on a landscape riddled with death. The fight raged on with an omnipresent malevolence that sent an icy chill coursing through my veins. At the center of the fray stood not only lost souls but a figure I had glimpsed before, the wraith with its outstretched finger, the puppeteer of this malevolence. It moved seamlessly among the conflicts, weaving chaos, binding the fallen to their fate. You see? It whispered, its voice crawling under my skin. The cycle continues, and you are at the heart of it. Choose, child of blood. Will you fight alongside them? Or will you stand by as they languish in their torment? As I opened my mouth to respond, a piercing scream shattered the air, the sound echoing with pain and fury. I turned, horrified, to witness a warrior, once noble, now caught in the grasp of a monstrous specter, its fingers purple and brittle, drawing life from him with each tortured breath. The ghostly figure turned its empty eyes toward me, pleading, and in that moment of desperation, I felt the weight of countless souls hanging in the balance. The choice loomed larger than life itself, And just as I opened my mouth to speak an answer fluttering not just in my mind but in the marrow of my lineage, the ground quaked violently beneath me. The battlefield began to implode, swirling chaos folding in as those fears, pained cries crescendoed into a nightmare symphony that promised dissolution. And then everything echoed back into darkness, leaving nothing but a lingering, suffocating silence until, with a final, furious scream echoing from the depths of the void, I felt the touch of something cold latch onto my ankle, pulling me downward into an unfathomable abyss, an echo of the past demanding its reckoning. The descent felt eternal, a deep, unending plunge through the darkness that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. As I fell, the cold clutched at me, pulling me closer to an indescribable force lurking just beyond the veil of oblivion. With each heartbeat, the echo of tortured screams reverberated in my ears, seemingly coming from the very walls of the void, surrounding me in a cacophony of despair. Suddenly, with a harsh lurch, I landed on damp earth, a howling wind chasing around me, carrying whispers that curdled my blood. The oppressive dark was replaced by a morbid twilight, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and decay. Shadows danced on the periphery of my vision, flickering like the dying embers of hope. I staggered to my feet, eyes straining to pierce the gloom. The ground beneath me was littered with what appeared to be fragments of broken armor, remnants of battles fought in ages long past. Haunted reflections of ancient warriors flitted through the obsidian shadows, fierce echoes of their once mighty forms now twisted in anguish. The past clung to them like a foul mist, and in their hollow eyes, I saw the tragic accounts of honor and betrayal etched forever. The wraith appeared before me, swirling within the shivering darkness, its fingers trailing vaporous tendrils that danced ominously in the air. "You stand at the crossroads between realms," it hissed, voice a chilling lullaby that tore at the edges of my mind. "These warriors harbor pain beyond measure, bound to this cursed ground, and you are the key to their release. What choice will you make?" "I don't understand," I stammered, overwhelmed by the swirling energies around me. "What can I do? I'm just a nobody." The specter tilted its head, eyes glinting like burning coals against the blackness. "You underestimate your worth, child of blood. Each warrior here carries a shard of your essence. In their fight, you will find your truth, your destiny. Embrace it, or perish alongside them." A shriek of fury sliced through the air, forcing my attention to a tangle of shadows beyond the mist. A group of spectral figures pulled against invisible chains, desperately straining against the force that held them captive. Their anguished cries surged like a tide, beckoning for help, for release, a release I somehow knew I could forge. But a different voice echoed still, soft but insistent, whispering warnings that pierced the haze. "Don't do it. You'll lose yourself, you'll become just like them." I shook my head, confusion twisting my thoughts. The chains began to tremble as the figure closest to me, a warrior clad in tattered remnants of noble armor, locked eyes with me. His face bore the weight of centuries, but within his expression flickered a spark of recognition. "Help us!" he implored, anguish and desperation lacing his words. "You can end this. Free us from his grip." But before I could respond, the ground itself rumbled violently. With a sudden jolt, the spectral figure was pulled backward, caught in an invisible snare. His feral screams sliced through me as a swirling mass of shadows engulfed him, leaving only echoes behind. My heart raced, the intense surge of dread clawing at the back of my mind, urging me to flee. But I could not abandon those lost souls. A surge of resolve filled me. I peered into the depths where the shadows writhed in fury, the echo of the wraith's promise echoing in my ears like an unbearable symphony. "Fight!" the voice cried from within. "You must." In a heartbeat, I felt a surge of energy coursing through me, as if the blood of countless warriors stirred in my veins. Power thrummed like a heartbeat, raw and electric, yet twisted with the undeniable weight of dread. My hand grasped the sword that had marked me, finding it now warm and alive, pulsing as if it craved to be unleashed. And just as the shadows began to part before me, revealing a path laden with the whispers of the fallen, everything split open, revealing yet another chasm of darkness. A pair of glowing red eyes stared up from the abyss, hungry and destructive, a creature woven from pain and vengeance, waiting, watching. Before I could act, The wail of the vanquished rose around me, churning against my heart, and I turned quickly to face the onslaught of shadows that converged, ready to fight back against the unknown. Yet as I prepared, the air crackled with energy, a voice rumbled from the very depths of darkness. One more must fall, for the circle yet remains unbroken, and with that declaration, the abyss yawned wide as tendrils of shadow reached out, weaving around my ankles with a grip of iron, dragging me mercilessly toward the creature with the fiery gaze, the void becoming an all-consuming maw of despair. The tendrils of shadow clutched at my legs with an icy grip, pulling me inexorably toward the maw of that dreadful abyss. Panic surged through me as I attempted to claw my way forward, grasping at the frayed remnants of sanity that fluttered like a dying ember within my chest. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of echoes, weaving together tales of horror and longing, each voice a soldier, yearning for freedom yet bound in eternal torment. "Foolish child!" the Wraith's voice reverberated, mocking and sinister. "You believe you can change fate? These bonds are woven from the very essence of despair itself." The creature's eyes, burning like molten coals, narrowed, deepening the shadows around me. "You must choose, for the price of salvation is steep." Images surged through my mind, a sea of battlefields littered with the fallen, warriors clashing with swords forged in the fires of torment. Faces warped in anguish appeared, their cries cut short as their souls were ripped from their bodies. My connection to them pulsed with a fierce urgency, as if their souls intertwined with mine, begging for release and revenge. I gasped, frustration and fear mingling within me. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice barely a whisper in the deafening chorus. "The circle demands a sacrifice," the Wraith hissed, twisting ethereal fingers through the shadows, drawing forth a glittering dagger, its blade shimmering with the agony of countless souls embedded in its steel. "You may claim the power hidden within these warriors, but you must first extinguish a life." With horror clawing at my throat, I scrunched my eyes shut as a swirling vision assaulted my mind. I saw my own hands, holding the dagger to the heart of an innocent, their pleading eyes staring up at me, uncomprehending. My breath caught as cold realization set in. The one I would have to choose was not a stranger, but someone I had known, someone I had once loved. "No," I moaned, my voice cracking under the weight of despair. "No! I wouldn't let this happen." But the shadows around me surged, a tide of darkness rising, driving me forward as my grasp on reality began to waver. Each step felt like a betrayal, my heart heavy with the lives that hung in the balance. Yet behind me, the spectral warriors continued to fight against their chains, their anguish echoing through the hollow expanse. "Do you hear them?" the Wraith whispered, its voice curling around my mind. "Their torment feeds this realm, sweetening the deal you must seal. One life for the redemption of many, a simple exchange." My pulse raced. The dagger gleamed in the haunting light, as if aware of the conflict that raged within me. The damned cries echoed behind me, growing louder, joined by a new sound, the muffled sobs of a familiar figure, their essence woven into this dark tale, begging for my help. "Help me!" trailed a voice, unmistakable and piercing. It was Clara. A vision of her face appeared, glistening with tears and fading hope. "You can't do this! You can't!" The cry broke me. The dagger trembled in my grip, and the rush of power surged, threatening to overwhelm. As shadows crept closer, suffocating the light, the presence of the creature pulsed with both promise and doom. It desired my submission yet reveled in my torment, reveling in every drop of doubt that tormented my every thought. "Choose!" the Wraith hissed, its breath like the echo of 1,000 lost souls at the edge of despair. A guttural roar erupted from the depths of the abyss, shaking the ground beneath my feet. Suddenly, the ground split wider, revealing the shadows of more warriors stretching toward me, their faces twisted with fury. The creature surged upward, clawing and writhing, desperate to escape the dark prison of its own making. As I stood there, breathless and trembling, the Wraith's visage shifted, its shadows swirling into countless haunting figures. "One must die, but you can also join them. Your pain is the final key, and only then shall those who linger find respite." The world darkened around me, giving way to the pandemonium of lost souls and agonizing cries. Clara's face shimmered before me, a beacon of light within this realm of chaos, and for one heart-stopping second, my resolve flickered. Then came the deafening roar of the creature, and the ground trembled once more. "The choice is upon you, mortal," it growled, its gaze locking onto mine, hunger boiling within the depths of those flaming orbs. "What will you sacrifice?" Before I could muster an answer, the shadows erupted, and several of the tortured warriors lunged forward in a frenzy of limbs and desperate cries, surrounding me in chaos. They urged me to act, their voices mingling to form an unholy chant that reverberated deep within my soul. And from that mounting darkness, a new terror arose. A hollow-eyed figure ascended from the abyss, face marked by grief yet exuding a determination that froze the very air around me. As its hands reached for me, lips curling into a chilling smile that promised not salvation, but an awakening of the very worst. "Prepare," it rasped, "to face what lies within." The last vestiges of light faded as I was swallowed whole by the void. The void released me like a child cast from its mother's grasp, and I fell onto the damp earth of a twisted landscape. The ground trembled beneath me, rolling like the waves of a dark sea, an endless expanse littered with the remnants of forgotten battles. Fractured blades, broken shields, and decaying banners lay strewn across the eerie terrain, relics of a time when valor was measured by blood and honor. My breath came in ragged gasps as I stumbled to my feet, disoriented by the transition from intangible terror to the grotesque reality around me. The air was heavy with the scent of rotting flesh and smoke, mingling with an otherworldly chill that slipped beneath my skin. Shadows danced at the edges of my vision, flitting and swirling like leaves caught in a deadly whirlwind. From the depths of the battlefield rose a haunting melody, the mournful wails of lost souls intertwining with the clash of distant armor. I turned instinctively, drawn to the sound, my heart entangled in trepidation and sorrow. The spectral warriors fought on, too consumed by their rage and pain to notice my presence, their forms flickering like candle flames caught in the draft of an unseen storm. I couldn't tear my gaze away from the frenzy. There, at the center of a swirling mass of shadows and despair, stood a solitary figure. Its armor, once shimmering, was now dulled and corroded, a testament to the centuries spent locked in perpetual battle. With a battle cry that echoed through the despairing winds, the warrior charged, tearing through the throng of phantoms with a ferocity that sent chills spiraling down my spine. "Stop!" I screamed, my voice swallowed by the cacophony, desperation spilling from my lips. "You don't have to fight anymore." But they could not hear me. The scene twisted in a warped timbre, each clash of steel and cries of agony plunging deeper into my core. A sudden realization seared through me. Each warrior was trapped here, condemned to replay their final moments, each one unaware that they were nothing more than echoes of the past clinging to their hatred. As I staggered back, sinking to my knees amidst the debris, the Wraith's voice slithered through the coated fabric of my mind. "You're all part of this sickening cycle. Your heart beats in resonance with their pain. Feel it." It reached out from the darkness, echoing through the chaos, its own cruel laughter mingling with the suffering. Fury ignited within me. Why? Why are they still here? Let them go. The desperation clawed at my throat, spurring me onward. Perhaps there was a chance, some way to break this cycle. In response, the shadowy figures turned toward me, a shuddering ripple of recognition coursing through their ranks. Haunted faces stared at me, their mouths moving in silent plea, their hollow eyes reflecting a history I could only grasp in shreds. Just then, the air thickened, charging with electric energy. A spear of light pierced through the murky heavens, illuminating the battlefield and casting long shadows in the unnatural glow. I looked up, heart pounding, as a figure emerged from the blinding radiance. The clarity of this being contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding it. A glowing specter of magnificent bearing clad in ethereal armor, raised a sword etched with runes that spoke of ancient power and burdens. "Cease this madness," the figure bellowed, voice booming with authority. The warriors halted, their bodies momentarily frozen in time. "Your battles are not yet over, but you shall not fight alone." Murmurs surged through the wraiths, their voices rising in a crescendo of anger and confusion. The glowing specter turned its gaze to me, a silent invitation in those incandescent eyes. With mingled fear and determination, I rose to my feet. Maybe this was my chance not just to save Clara, but to liberate these tormented souls ensnared in the cycle of vengeance and despair. But just as the spectre began to weave a new song of freedom, the darkness recoiled violently, the air snapping like a taut bowstring. An ominous shadow surged forth, draping everything in a cloak of terror so thick it suffocated the light. The ground quaked beneath me, splintering and reshaping as unseen forces battled for dominion over this haunted realm. In a frantic rush, I lunged toward the glowing figure, desperate to make contact, to join in that reverberating power rising to combat the encroaching darkness. But as my fingertips grazed the light, a scream erupted from the depths of the abyss, a cry so mournful it shattered the air itself, spiraling deep into the recesses of my mind. The spectral warrior behind me lunged, eyes wild with panic. "No! You mustn't join them! Do not look back!" Yet it was too late. The wraith emerged from the shadows, its grotesque form shifting and distorting as it glowered at me, eyes blazing with fury. "They will drag you down! A sacrifice must be made!" It shrieked, its voice layered with the screams of 1,000 tortured souls. As the darkness howled and the light flickered, the very ground began to tear apart. I was caught in a tempest, balance slipping as the pull of the abyss threatened everything I held dear. "Remember, you're not just fighting for yourself," the glowing figure shouted, its voice piercing through the chaos. "Fight for them." The anguished cries clawed at my heart as the bitter realization set in. I was to choose between life and the lives of those who had become my brothers in battle, their scars seeping into my soul. With a final roar of defiance, the world around me cracked, splitting wide open as I grappled with the choice that loomed just beyond the horizon of pain and liberation. And in that moment of chaos, it became clear, I would have to face not only the darkness but what lay within me, waiting to rise as the screaming, bloodied spectre of forgotten joys clawed toward the surface. What would emerge? What legacy of suffering would I inherit as I stood on the precipice of fate? A blinding light erupted, swallowing everything, and I was left hanging in that eternal moment of despair, surrounded by the whispers of the damned and the haunting promise of sacrifice ringing in my ears, teetering on the edge of the abyss. And then there was silence, a tense, crushing silence louder than any scream. The silence was a shroud, heavy and oppressive. My heart raced, each beat echoing like a war drum in the void. The darkness crept closer, suffocating me in its embrace, a malevolent force intent on dragging me into its depths. The last vestiges of light pulsed faintly, an ember struggling against the gale of despair. Then, slowly, shapes began to coalesce in the dense shadows around me. Familiar voices echoed, like the tolling of a distant bell, tethering my sanity to this hellish realm. "You're one of us now," they whispered, each syllable laced with a sorrow that forced bile up my throat. Faces emerged from the gloom, warriors of flesh and bone, companions in this twisted eternity, each marred by wounds that glimmered with an otherworldly sheen. "Join us," one called, his voice a broken sigh skimming against the edges of reality. He extended a hand, blood dripping from his fingers, trailing like ink in water. "Feel our pain, share our burden. Together, we can fight." "What fight is this?" I shouted, panic sparking like fire in my veins. "You're all dead. You shouldn't be here." His laugh elicited a cacophony of moans from the figures beside him. "Dead? Or reborn in these wretched chains?" The others latched onto their anger, voices rising in a symphony of rage that shook the ground beneath me. "Feel their wrath, feel our sorrow," they chorused, the air thick with electric energy. "We were betrayed, forgotten. The darkness consumes us, but within you there is still light." A tempest roared to life, winds twisting around us, carrying the dust of ages long past, and the screams of the lost as they swelled into a horrific crescendo. I turned, desperately seeking the glowing figure from before, the potential savior, but the ethereal warmth had faded, swallowed whole by the chaotic tumult. In its place, insidious shadows slithered across my vision, taunting me with false mirages of escape. "Leave now, while you still can!" a voice shrieked, one of the spectral warriors who clutched at my sleeves with ghostly fingers, pleading through silent screams trapped in the nether. They want to manipulate you. Don't fall into despair. But a cold dread gripped my chest. A sinister clarity broke through the fog. Their painful truths surged within me, drawing forth not just my empathy, but the specters of my own ghost losses that I had buried under the weight of worldly concerns. Clara. Always Clara. Lost to me, wrenched away by forces I could barely comprehend, and with that unbearable thought, a portal of sorrow opened wide within my chest, spilling forth memories that twisted and writhed like snakes. These were not mere figments of remembrance. They were raw tendrils of anguish, reaching out to intertwine with the tortured souls before me. I could see her faint outline amidst the crowd, her eyes glistening, pleading for me to save them, to save myself. Convulsions of anguish gripped my heart, and suddenly I was standing in a forest, the damp earth beneath my feet, Clara's laughter echoing through the trees. I dashed forward, seeking the silhouette through the mist. "Clara, where are you?" I cried, the horror of my past clawing at my throat. A jarring laughter swept through the air, rich and dark as a gaping chasm. "You think your love can save you? You fool! Embrace the suffering." Shadows enveloped me, tightening like a noose around my throat. Faces swarmed, their mouths twisted in grotesque anticipation, waiting to consume my soul. "Fight! Fight for the light!" the spectral warrior urged, his hand shooting forward, connecting my pain with theirs in a visceral shock of energy. Sparks flew, igniting my insides and blurring the lines between my heart and theirs. Suddenly, I felt it, the pull of dark royal blue tendrils uncoiling from the abyss. They snaked around me, reaching deep into memories I had desperately tried to hide. I watched helplessly as images ruptured behind my eyelids, losses, griefs, regrets all clawing to the surface, ready to drown me. Then, through the noise, a single voice broke through, crystalline and clear, Clara's voice, resonating with love and bravery. "Don't give in to them. Fight for us." Her words clawed through my despair, igniting a raging fire within. I roared in defiance, pushing back against the encroaching desolation. The spectral warriors surged forward, gathering around me, bolstered by my burgeoning strength. But the shadows writhed in anger, furious at my defiance. They leaped forth, countless forms twisting like thunderclouds, their anguished bellows reaching a fever pitch. "You cannot escape. This is your fate." As I summoned the now familiar spark of courage, merging my essence with the anguished warriors, I felt the balance shift. The darkness recoiled, shadows retreating momentarily as our collective fury surged. The ground trembled, dividing into chasms that opened like the jaws of a beast beneath our feet. In this moment of clarity, the void's grip slackened just enough for me to shout, "I choose to fight! For Clara and for all of you!" It echoed with a fierce resonance, an uncanny harmony amidst the cacophony surrounding us. But the shadows writhed violently, surging back with renewed power, an avalanche of darkness intent on swallowing me whole once again. "Remember what you love, and lose it!" They howled, clawing back toward me, each whisper igniting flames of dread within my soul. And it was then that I felt it. A chilling sharpness creeping into my mind, pricking at the edges of my consciousness. I glanced over my shoulder, realizing I hadn't just summoned corpses lost to time, but a mirror reflecting my own deepest fears. A flicker, a shadow reaching out, lurking just beyond the threshold of light, waiting to meet me halfway. The shadows lunged, and I braced myself for impact, knowing that whatever happened next would define my fate in this forsaken battleground. As darkness and light collided, the world erupted around us, leaving a resonating echo of fractured screams, and I could only wonder, would I emerge as a warrior? Or would my soul succumb to the dusk? And just as a scream ripped from my throat, the void shifted, revealing Clara, standing on the precipice of light, her expression contorted in terror. "No! Come back! Don't let them take you!" But the darkness surged forward, enclosing around me, and I was swept into the abyss, her cries nothing but distant echoes swallowed by the roiling chaos. In that final breath, as the shadows engulfed me, I realized the chilling truth: what I sought to save may have already been lost. The world imploded around me, collapsing into a vortex of terror, whispers, and memories. I fell through the deepening abyss, my heartbeat sinking with the pulse of the darkness, each drop plunging me deeper into despair. The echoes of Clara's voice clung to me, a haunting melody of love and loss rising up to meet me even as the shadows choked out my sanity. With one final crash, I hit the ground, tumbling onto the surface of a charred battlefield, the earth scorched and uneven. Bodies lay scattered around me like the remnants of ash, the air thick with the smell of iron and decay. I pushed myself up, bewildered, scanning the grotesque landscape, but it was all too familiar. It was a twisted mirror of the battle I had witnessed before, only now, the warriors appeared as phantoms of themselves, not merely trapped but consuming one another in a grotesque parody of desperation and vengeance. I de-entered the heart of their curse, a place where regrets coalesced into a toxic fog. "Welcome back," a voice slithered from the darkness, resonating through the debris. I turned sharply to find the wraith, a twisted figure draped in shadows, eyes flickering with malicious delight. "You returned only to be reminded of your true legacy." Memories surged forth, visions of battles fought, friends lost, and Clara's cries, each one cutting through me like shards of glass. I staggered back, every part of me screaming to flee. But the ground beneath me morphed and quaked, as if alive, refusing to let me escape this hell. "It's such a beautiful cycle," the wraith continued, its voice dripping with malice. "Each soul binds another to this realm. Their pain coursing through you feeds our existence, and your anguish makes our power stronger." "No!" I screamed, clutching my head, desperate to quiet the cyclone of agony that filled my heart. "I'm not like you. I want to give in." A thunderous roar erupted, and the darkened sky broke apart to reveal countless faces trapped in torment, souls who had once been warriors, fallen victims to a curse much deeper than death itself. They turned their hollow eyes upon me, mouths moving in silent pleas. "Join us," they begged, voices merging into a haunted harmony. "Become one with the fury. Help us finish what was never completed." "Don't listen to them." The glowing specter I had previously seen appeared behind me, its light cutting through the gathering shadows, illuminating a path toward redemption. "You are not just blood, you are choice. You can change this fate." The wraith seethed with anger, its features melting into grotesque forms. "You can't save them. They are your burden now. You accepted the sword's mark, you cannot escape your destiny." The air vibrated with tension as the energy of the love I felt for Clara ignited in my chest, pushing against the waves of fear. "You're wrong. I can break this cycle." Fueled by intuition, I plunged forward to seize the sword gleaming in the distance, its brilliance blinding against the shadows. As my fingers wrapped around the hilt, power surged through my veins, a fierce river of courage and pain that twisted and turned with the essence of the lost souls. My heart beat in tandem with theirs, a melody binding us together. "No!" the wraith howled, its voice splitting the air, desperate and fearful. "You will doom them all." As I raised the sword, the energy pulsing through me intensified, echoing with the collective sorrow and fury of the trapped souls. "I choose to fight," I called, voice carrying through the thick haze of despair. The shadows recoiled, a wave of darkness rushing away from the shimmering light enveloping me. I felt the souls around me merging with my heartbeat, intertwining in one final confrontation against the raging tempest of the wraith, and then everything shattered. The world exploded into a kaleidoscope of colors, illuminating a grim tapestry of past battles in my mind, revealing their true faces, not just lost warriors, but friends who had sacrificed everything in fate's insatiable tide. I moved closer to the edge, balancing between the pull of darkness and the light, suffusing my spirit. "Let me help you!" I cried out, feeling Clara's presence wrap around me, enveloping me in warmth. "Together! We don't have to be trapped in this fight any longer." The shadows roared, surging forward in a frantic, furious wave to consume me as the wraith lunged, hollow eyes glinting with fury. "You cannot escape. To save them, you must sacrifice." In that moment, clarity struck me. The sacrifice wouldn't be made with blood but with the weight of the truth I had to face. I had feared losing Clara so fiercely that I'd forgotten what it meant to truly fight for our love, to acknowledge the power of choice without fear of the outcome. With resolve, I plunged the sword into the ground, grounding myself as every glimmer of light absorbed into me, spiraling into the darkness swirling around. I choose love over fear, I shouted, voice rising like thunder in the storm that raged against me. The air crackled, and a blinding light erupted, exploding outward and consuming everything in its wake. The cries of the damned coalesced into one final scream, a promise of liberation and acceptance. I could feel the souls breaking free, their anguish threading into the light, despair merging into hope. And just as the waves of darkness receded, something sharp tore through my heart, the Wraith's thrilling laughter shattering like glass amidst the surge of triumph. You think you have won? You may save the lost, but remember, you are bound to this horror. It will not forget you. I felt it, the cold remnants of the Wraith's curse stretching outward, grasping not just at me, but at the very essence of my soul. Memories of battles and struggles danced in my mind, their weight cascading like a storm of spirals threatening to consume me once more. Then, I was back standing alone in front of that ancient door, hand poised upon the handle, the air thrumming with knowledge of what lay beyond. I had glimpsed it, the essence of despair cloaked within light, the eternity of struggle, the choice that never ceased. And in the chilling silence, as I withdrew my hand, I felt both free and forever ensnared, a reflection of their torment forever etched in my blood. For in choosing to watch instead of wield, I realized, the true horror was never in the ghosts I faced, but in the possibility that the darkness had always lived within me. With a shuddering breath, I backed away from the door, the laughter of the Wraith echoing behind me, a foreboding promise ushering into my soul. And I understood the reality of my fate, thickening the night. Wherever I would go, the fight would follow. Fight or fall, the chilling words lingered as an unsettling truth settled deep within my spirit. The haunting whispers of the damned still echoed in my ears, as I took one step back, fully aware that I would forever remain in the shadows of the battlefield, a guardian, bound to witness the war of souls and never free of its reach.